One thing I've always loved about your music is, so how can I put this? I'm going to gush if I'm not careful. This there's so much melody in everything you do well.
Mhm.
Even even when it's quite, technically difficult, very sophisticated arrangements, the melodies are so beautiful and simple, you can pretty much sing them back after one listen. Now, that's a really beautiful thing, and I think that's why your music resonates with so many people. But I'd like to know how that came to be. Is that something that you've consciously thought about and worked on, or is it more something that kind of came out naturally within your wider musical voice?
I think it's something that developed over time. It's not something that, my first piece of music wasn't like a lovely melody necessarily or anything like that. And it took me a long time of developing my own kind of compositional voice to realize that melody was something that I found to be very important and resonated with me. I love what a melody can do. I think it's an amazing thing. Like I have like an interest in design as well, and for me, like a melody is like a line drawing, and so some of the best designs you could recognize from just a single line drawing, and you'd go, ah, yes, that's whatever it might be. Just like great designs are can be kind of boiled down to their essence of themselves in that way. In the same way as a piece of music, if you boil it all down, strip everything away, and you're left with just that line drawing, that melody, it can still be immensely powerful and connect in a very human way with people. But that took time. It took me time to kind of realize that was going to be a big part of my own music. But there were also kind of moments within my journey that kind of I don't know, it got me thinking that melody was the thing to dig into and did need importance. And a couple of things. I mean, one was the fact that my dad was a musician himself, and he would often talk to me about the importance of a good tune. So that was kind of bubbling away in the back of my mind somewhere. And then I also had this interesting kind of thing happen, which is even surreal to think about now, even. But back in the days when I first started writing, I would also record myself in a very, very basic way. I think it was literally like take the jack from my guitar and get a converter into the microphone jack from my desktop computer, just plug it straight in, like absolutely brutal kind of recording process. But I just did it because I enjoyed that process of kind of recording my stuff. And I'd have these kind of like CDs of like 2 or 3 tracks that I'd like palm off to family members and that kind of thing. And then I went to a gig in my local town at the time, Wimborne Minster, at the venue there at the Tivoli Theatre. And the gig was of 2 guitarists, Andy McKee and Tommy Emmanuel. They were doing like a double header. And after the gig, I did the wonderful kind of teenage thing of like going up to the CD stand at the end of the gig with this CD, and I gave a copy to them, right, to Tommy and Andy, expecting absolutely nothing whatsoever, because these are very, very busy people who are touring all over the place. They probably get handed music all the time, and I was very, very expectant of the fact that it would just end up in a bin backstage, and that was fine. But I did it, and it had my phone number on it, in the kind of vain hope that they might be bothered to listen, and they might bother to get in touch about it. I had my phone number and email address or whatever it might have been. The following day, on my way to school, I was being driven to school by mum or dad, I can't quite remember, and I got a phone call to my mobile phone, and it was Tommy Emmanuel on the phone, and he had bothered to listen to the CD, and he had bothered to phone me up. And I at the time, I was so taken aback by it, I didn't even know what to say. I was kind of fairly stunned. My memory of it is sketchy, but it was something like, "Hey, Will, it's Tommy here. And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, I've listened to the CD, like the word, but I think that you should really focus in on the melodies, and that has always stuck with me. Um, it was a very brief conversation, not least because I wasn't giving anything back to him because I was just so stunned by it all. But he definitely said to me, you should really focus on the melody. And it stuck with me. And though all of those kind of influences kind of like bubbled away. And then as I started composing more and I started recording myself more and I started to listen to myself more, and that was a massive kind of sea change for me. It's like I started listening to my music more, which is a silly thing, right? You think, oh, you listen to your music all the time. You're the one writing it. But no, I was playing it. I wasn't listening to it. And the two things are very, very different. And I was playing these pieces and I was like, yeah, this is great. I'm having fun here. Then I'd record them and I'd listen to it and I go to myself, I am not enjoying listening to this piece of music. And that is a problem. Like I'm enjoying playing it, but I'm not enjoying listening to it. And I was like, why is that? And it's all about the melody. So I didn't have anything I was latching onto there. Musically, for me, I was wanting to hear that melody. And over a period of a good few years, that just started becoming a more and more important part of the music I was creating. The melody, and yeah, singing, being able to sing that tune and making sure that it could hold its own on its own, stripping it back to that line drawing idea again, that's been a big part of how I've thought about my own compositions for sure.
There's some wonderful stories there, Will. Thank you for sharing them with
Yeah, no
us.
worries, man.
There's a couple of things I wanted to say in relation to all that. Firstly, I love that analysis of the line drawing, and then you can shade out and work from there. I remember it must be about 3 or 4 years ago now. I was out in Spain, and I was up near Ronda, and I was on this coach trip, and I had one of your albums on, and this track came on. I think it was Blindsided,
Hmm.
and I just had that on loop for about an hour, and
Oh wow.
I just loved how you just kept reworking that melody, but kept coming back to it.
Hmm.
There was it. It was very simple, exceptionally strong, and I think often people confuse simple and easy.
Yes.
I was listening to that and I thought, that's very simple, but my
Hmm.
God, that's not easy to do.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and, and certainly not to that level of refinement. So I love your melodies for that reason, the way they can evolve.
Oh, thanks, Samuel. I appreciate that. I'm glad you like them, man.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And the other question I've got relating to that, have you been in touch with Tommy since? Because if you haven't, you really should.
Yeah, no, no, I haven't. Genuinely, it's one of those things where you think that our paths probably would have crossed at some gig or festival so far, but they really haven't. I mean, it's one of those degrees of separation thing, isn't it? Like, there's not many degrees of separation in the musical world, and obviously, a lot of my friends and colleagues work with Tommy, very, very frequently. If I do kind of see him again, and I'm sure I will do at some point. I would certainly like to hope I would. I would definitely share that story. I mean, thoroughly doubt that he will remember it because he does more gigs than anyone on this earth, and will speak to more kind of hopeful teenage guitarists than many other people would ever. But what I really loved about it is it just was that lovely little kind of moment of kindness from him to reach out to someone at that stage in life. And for him, it's a relatively small thing to do, right? Like it's a phone call for like a minute or two. And then he's off to the next gig and busy, busy, busy. But for me, it's a memory that I'll have for the rest of my life. And I think that that is something that I've been aware of, not just because of that, the fact that that moment meant quite a lot and how it kind of certainly felt like it did have an impact. But also, now that I am a professional myself and I'm working with students and I'm seeing people in gigs, you kind of think to yourself, well, it's a nice thing to be able to try and pass that on. It's one of those things where the torch constantly gets passed from one person to the next. So I'm hope I always do my best to try and be as giving as I can with like my time and responses to people, because you never know. You never know what one word, what one phrase might do to someone's outlook and how inspiring it could potentially be. So yeah, I would certainly hope to see Tommy again at some point. That would be great.